If you want more energy, clearer thinking, and steady moods, today is the day for you. Dr. Emmie Brown is here today to break down the simplest nutrition shifts, the lifestyle moves that matter, and also to explain to you the lab markers that actually guide wellness. Welcome back to The Advisor with Stacey Chillemi, where the insight becomes action. Now, by the end of this episode, you'll know how to build dietary diversity without overwhelm, how to stack small daily habits into your lifestyle, which will help you discuss with your own clinician. Now, today, Dr. Brown, welcome to the show. I'm very excited to have you on the show. I love what you do, and I think it makes such an impact on people's lives. So, in plain English, what does dietary diversity mean to you?
Yes, and thank you for having me, Stacey. It's funny because I was hosting a podcast for a while, so being in the hot seat is new to me. But thank you so much for having me.
You're
And
very welcome.
thank you. To answer your question, when we're talking about diversity, I think it's really important to think about colors. I'm a visual person, so I think about the colors of the rainbow, for example, or a garden. And in this context, we're speaking about the gut microbiome, which listeners may or may not have heard of. I think we're hearing more about it in the popular media. Anybody
Yeah.
who is interested in health and wellness may have heard of it. And so when we think about color, I'm thinking about, do we have fruits and vegetables, of course, but
Mhm.
also seeds, nuts, legumes? Are we eating beans and lentils? Are we
Mhm.
eating chia seeds and flax seeds and hemp hearts, for example? All these little things that help diversify the microbiome, which is our ecosystem in the gut. And that's going to lead to overall health and wellness because our gut microbes do so many good things for us. So we need to feed them a variety. So that translates into a variety of gut microbes in the gut.
Now, how many different plant foods per week should would most people aim for, and what's the easiest way to track it?
Yeah. So that's a great question. It's very helpful for listeners to understand that there's a lot of research ongoing with the microbiome. I really feel like we're at the tip of the iceberg, so there's so much more we need to know, I believe. But the
Yeah.
American Gut Project is a research study that looked at a variety of plant-based fibers, and they're looking at least 30 per week in folks who have optimal diversity and short-chain fatty acids. Short-chain
Yeah.
fatty acids are very beneficial compounds in the gut. And it doesn't have to be a ton of it doesn't have to be bowls and bowls of kale and broccoli and cabbage every day where you're measuring by the pound, but I mean little portions. Are we sprinkling on those seeds I talked about, sesame seeds and chia seeds, into our salads or our oats or our smoothies? All of those little portions add up throughout the week.
Yeah, they really do. They really
Mhm.
do. Now, what are some of like maybe like three simple things that we could add to our diversity without spending more money or time? Like can you give me some, examples of what we could do each week or even just this week alone to make a difference?
Yep. So I think we got to start with what do people like? What are they maybe already eating? Are they eating oatmeal in the morning, for example? That's a nice one. It's a good fiber source, and so that's what we're really
Yeah.
talking about is our microbes, our bugs, if you will, in the gut. They're primarily bacteria. They like to ferment these starches
Uh,
or these fibers. And that's
yeah.
where the benefit comes from if they're beneficial bacteria. And so let's say someone's already eating oats, they're already buying oats. Can we maybe beef up that fiber content and that prebiotic content? So, prebiotic meaning we're going to feed the probiotics using a prebiotic. It typically is a fiber. And so I would just go back to those little things we can add, and you can find these things at discount grocery stores now. We're seeing chia seeds and hemp seeds
Yeah.
and flax in the discount outlet grocery stores. So I do think that they're very accessible and affordable for everybody. Yogurt is such a great protein source and a source of fermented probiotics, of course. So
Yeah.
that's another way to add to the gut health. But I personally, I don't do a lot of dairy. I don't tolerate it very well. So we really want to customize these things and say, what are you already eating? What can you tolerate? And then think about what can we add from there.
Yeah.
And so I would say the seeds, nuts. Also think about like chickpeas for salads, if we can toss
Yeah.
that in.
Hmm.
Smoothies, I think people kind of go in and out of phases with smoothies because I burn out on them personally. I don't know somebody who's been drinking a smoothie every day for years. I don't know if you do.
I haven't.
You kind of have like, I'm on the smoothie bandwagon, right? And now I'm off. But if you're
Yeah.
on the smoothie train, you can pack in so much, right? I was telling my boyfriend's dad years ago, put spinach in your smoothie. And he looked at me like I had two heads. But this has become commonplace now. If you have a good blender, like even the cheap blenders are powerful enough to break down spinach and
Yeah.
give you a lot of nutrients from that. And if you're adding a little bit of coconut water, you're going to add a little bit of flavor and sweetness then that makes it palatable. So that's just I mean, that's a variety of things. I think we met at least three there.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Now, for listeners with common sensitivities like gluten or dairy, how can they still get strong diversity while still staying comfortable?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of our clients, our practitioners themselves are gluten-free, dairy-free. They're working with patients who are gluten-free, dairy-free. So those tend to be quite inflammatory for a lot of people. And there are so many great alternatives now. And people may or may not know, again, if you're not looking for it, you may not see it, but there's
Yeah.
coconut yogurt. There's almond yogurt. A lot of
Yeah.
these things are unsweetened, which is what I generally recommend because yogurts can be chock full of sugar.
Yeah.
And that's also going to be quite inflammatory and defeating the purpose of eating a fermented food such as a yogurt. So non-dairy options are abundant at this point. Same thing with gluten-free options. I mean, when I was in medical school, the options were not so great, quite cardboardy and just disappointing in the texture. So I think we've come a long way. There's a lot of artisanal and high quality gluten-free items. A lot of people struggle with grains also. I had a client, she said, we were talking about oats, as I just mentioned. She said, I
Yeah.
hate oats, like not just that she personally hates them, but she hates them for everybody. And there are some issues with grains, and some people can't digest them, and there might be competition with nutrients when we look at some of these grains. But there are other things that we can do. Some people eat quinoa for breakfast, or if you're grain free, right? Like let's talk about protein. Let's talk about polyphenol rich foods can also be really good for the gut. So can we do berries? Right?
Yeah.
Organic berries. I mean, there's so much out there. I would say focusing on just unprocessed. Does it come from the ground? And has it been untouched by man or woman? Right? Is the
Yeah.
question we want to think about.
Yeah. Now you talked about like, in college, you saw that, there were certain things like a lot of sugar in yogurt and other things. And, is that where you got your passion to pursue this? Tell us a little story about yourself. I want to learn a little about you too and
Sure.
why you became so passionate in this field.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Stacey. I think it's always fun to hear about how people came to the natural health industry and practice. Because there are some people who they were brought up in a family where they rarely use pharmaceuticals, they use botanical medicines. That was not the case for me. I grew up in a very kind of traditionally average. We went to the doctor when we needed to. We took an antibiotic if we really had to. I remember a
Right.
terrible UTI when I was little. We took the antibiotic. There's a time and a place, of course. And then,
Yeah.
so for me, it was I wanted to spend more time with patients. And so I was also becoming disillusioned with quick fixes, symptom support only
Yeah.
in medicine. I wanted to be a surgeon when I was
Mhm.
little. I loved the idea of the hands-on practice of surgery, and I was fascinated by um, opening somebody up and looking at the anatomy um and then I realized that that was going to be a long road and I wouldn't spend much time with patients. And I was always a great student. So I thought, how can I spend more time really teaching patients and spending time with patients about root cause?
Right.
So that's so important. And my sister had some health struggles. She started to see a naturopathic doctor who helped change things around for her. So I was inspired by that experience also. And so women's health, I think, really helped guide me to where I am today to understand there's more than just the birth control pill for managing irregular periods or painful periods, right?
Yeah.
So there were a variety of things that led me to where I am today, but I really wanted to give more care and attention to my patients. And I found that through naturopathic medicine.
I love that because I feel like a lot of times, we go down certain journeys and we become, who we are because of something that, led us there in our childhood years or adulthood years. And we just grew a passion for it and then realized, well, this is my purpose.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's the teaching that I really love, as I mentioned before. And every day I get to talk with healthcare practitioners who have really complex cases, difficult cases, and they're ordering these functional medicine tests. And it's so much fun and it's so gratifying to put our heads together and think about what could be going on, what do we need to further assess for.
Yeah.
Yep, that part's really fulfilling.
Right. Now, if someone is eating like the same foods, on a repeat basis, what is the first upgrade you want them to make in the next 7 days?
Well, I mean, I would say the first thing is what are their goals? What's going on? That's really
Mhm.
key. That's what I talk to our clinicians about, is what's the presentation? Sometimes we get patients who say, I feel great. I want to keep feeling great. There is a lot of conversation right now about longevity. Those
Mhm.
cases can be a little bit trickier in a way because we don't have a clinical gauge to
Yeah.
understand what's working, but that's why we rely even more so on labs for those folks. So it depends on what they're trying to really move the needle on.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of people eat repetitive diets for
Hmm.
sure. And there might be a number of reasons for this. I think oftentimes it's just because they don't realize how much variety we have right now in terms of again, like all the things you'll see at health food stores, as I mentioned before, the little things you're not going to buy them unless it's on your list. Like
Yeah.
hemp seeds, or as I said, or thinking about resistant starch. Resistant
Yeah.
starch is something a lot of people are not familiar with, and this is really good for your gut health as well. And so I'd wonder what's going on. What are they trying to change? Why are they eating a repetitive diet? And just kind of go from there. But starting with nutrients, also understanding, are they restricting anything for a certain reason? Um,
Yeah.
as you mentioned before, dairy-free and gluten-free diets are becoming increasingly popular. So I want to understand why, because I'm always trying to add, how can we make a diet more nutrient dense? And
Yeah.
oftentimes in an effort to heal or manage a symptom, we get so restrictive.
Yeah. It's
That's
true.
what I,
It's,
yeah, really
it's
want to
so
understand
true.
first. Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, is it true that you can eat the same food so much that your body grows a little bit of a resistance to it?
Sometimes we do see that in practice. So habitual exposure or repetitive exposure may increase risk of sensitivity.
Hmm.
And so some providers will recommend that patients rotate certain things, even toothpaste, so even topical products, not
Really?
just foods. So if they maybe are sensitive in terms of rashes, or perioral dermatitis is something that patients deal with, or
Yeah.
thinking about what's being applied topically around the mouth, near and around the mouth. So
Yeah.
rotating even personal care products in addition to foods. And again, going back to that diversity, that's really, really key so that the
Yeah.
immune system is not seeing the same thing over and over and over again. And so sometimes we do see sensitivity associated with that repetitive exposure.
Wow. Now, what is the minimum effect dose for sleep and one thing that can change and improve sleep the fastest?
Oh gosh, I mean, there are so many things. I mean, I don't have stats in front of me as far as, what's going to be the most efficacious, excuse me, but I think about the basics as being really helpful. And so that is again, people may have heard this, but I think it's important to remind us blocking blue light. So that means, are we staring at our screens before bedtime? Are we scrolling in bed?
Yeah.
Do we have a TV in the bedroom? That's been a big no-no for me. I had a professor years and years ago, and she said that the bed is for sleep and sex. You're not there to watch TV.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the TV in the bedroom could be a big disrupting factor for people, especially if they're struggling with sleep. Not getting enough movement in the day, sedentary lifestyles. We're not going to have that desire to sleep unless we've expended enough energy during the day.
Yeah.
So
That's very
exercise is major.
It really is. I don't think people realize how important it is. And you don't have to exercise like 6 hours in the gym, just even 15 minutes is sufficient, depending on your body and what you can do. And, but getting your body to move around and getting that blood flow going is so important for your body as well.
Absolutely, yes. And I would also mention keeping a cool environment, dark, right? Blackout
Mm.
shades are wonderful. I think
Yeah.
it's definitely worth the investment for people. And we sleep better when it's cooler. So,
Yeah.
if people are uncomfortable in their sleep environment, I like to make things fun for patients. So say,
Yeah.
what can we swap out? Can you, look for something that's in your budget, but also it's aesthetically pleasing and it makes you happy when you go into your
Yeah.
bedroom? And I recently read about, we're always looking at things and reading things. And so I can't tell you if it was an article or a news story or a video, but um, we were talking about improving sleep habits. And one woman said, she likes to set the kind of stage, if you will, for good sleep before she goes to
Yeah.
sleep. So maybe like an hour before, it's like a turn down service she does for herself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she'll peel back the sheets, and she might spray her pillow with, let's say, a non-toxic, all-natural essential oil-based
Yeah.
fragrance
Uh-huh.
like a lavender. And so everything is set up before she's ready to go to bed. And I thought that's just so lovely, and it's such a nice
Yeah.
practice to have for people.
That is a nice practice to have for people. Now, like what I just thought about too is that I
Yeah.
I remember I was watching Guy, I don't know if you ever seen it, but they have all this stuff about, yoga and Pilates and everything you can think of. And there are yoga actually stretches you could do too,
Mm.
before you go to bed at night to relax you and make you feel at a level of calmness that you could just, start to, get to a point where you feel it's easier for you to actually fall asleep.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I know stretching before bedtime is a great practice that I am still meaning to get into myself.
Yeah.
But it's so true. I mean, think about all the aches and pains people experience. Back pain is
Yeah.
such a big issue. And I really think that a big part of it is we're not stretching really at
Yeah.
all, but at least not enough. So
Right.
before bed, it is a really nice way to wind down. So thank you, yeah, for bringing that up.
Yeah, I've done it and I've seen the difference. I'm like, wow, I was like shocked of how it just put me in such a relaxed mode where I was more when I got into bed, I was actually more relaxed and I fell asleep easier and it was a much better sleep just from
Mhm.
those exercises and stretches with yoga.
I
But
believe it.
I was wondering, what is your minimum effective dose for movement and how would you structure it on a busy weekend or weekday?
Yeah, I mean, so everyone's different, right? We need to individualize these plans. And so you said, how would I structure it, particularly on a busy weekend or just a busy
Yeah.
week?
Yeah, sometimes people, during the week we're all busy. We're going to work and we're
Yeah.
on the go. And then, like for people who have, kids and they're, during the weekends they're going to the games and they're running the kids
Mhm.
around and stuff like that. Sometimes it's hard to get away from, to the stress of life,
Yeah.
And so I was wondering, how you would actually, structure it.
So I say for people, do what works. Some people will write things on the calendar and they love seeing it and they like having
Mhm.
that structure. So it might just
Like that.
be, yeah, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and your weekend is free of any kind of scheduled exercise. It might not be that for some people. Maybe they're not very structured. Maybe they're not very organized. That's fine. I would say for those individuals, starting with just 10 minutes. Um,
Yeah.
and whatever it is, there's so many great routines on YouTube that are free. I have been using the Peloton app and I do not I'm not sponsored by them. I'm a fan. And they just have on-demand streaming classes. So I don't have the tread, they don't have the bike. It's strength training, yoga, they even have meditation. Um,
Yeah.
so if whatever you're using, if you're using YouTube, if you're using Peloton, if you're using, I mean, I think that there's probably apps. There's a lot of apps that people can download. 10 minutes, like 10 minutes, or put on your favorite song and just dance around while you're cleaning, right? So if
Yeah.
you're going to be
That's a
cleaning
good idea.
anyway and you don't put on music, then I don't know, you're missing out on a lot of fun. Put
That's
on music.
actually great. I love
Yeah, I
it.
mean, you want to
You don't,
dance, and that's a good way of moving your body. Also, is making it fun, and music always does that for me. So I can only really speak for myself, but I think that for patients, it's finding what works for them, and they might not know what works for them. Maybe they've never had an exercise routine, so they need to start brainstorming on these questions. So I
yeah.
appreciate that one.
I like that because if you're putting on your favorite music and it's upbeat, and let's say you're cleaning the house or doing the laundry and you're kind of moving around, you're really getting, you don't realize, but you're burning those calories, you're getting those steps in, you're moving your body, you're stretching, and
It
you don't even
counts.
realize it. It counts. It definitely counts. Now,
Absolutely.
how should we think about sunlight, stress management, and breath work? Like, give me one practical step for each of them.
Mm, sunlight first thing in the morning.
Hmm.
So and I know you're on the East Coast, I'm on the West Coast. I know that we both get overcast days. I mean, and I cannot complain. It's sunny right now. I'm very lucky. But I grew up outside of Chicago and I know those brutal winters. I know that you feel like you wake up and it's maybe it's not even sunrise yet. You're getting ready to go to work and then you come home in the winter and it's already dark. And so
Right.
circadian rhythm is really important when it comes to overall health and wellness. And we haven't touched on that too much in terms of beyond sleep, rather. But even if it's overcast, is my point, going outside in the morning
Yeah.
before you're looking at your phone. And I don't care if it's work related or if it's, I mean, we don't need to be scrolling in the morning, right? We want to see
Yeah.
natural light hit our eyes first thing in the morning, go have your coffee or tea outside. I mean, bonus points if you can get your bare feet in the grass. I don't have that
Yeah.
luxury. I have a balcony, but if we can just get outside, even if it's cloudy, this will signal to the nervous system that it's daytime, it's time to be alert, it's time to be focused, and that can
Yeah.
help us wind down later for bedtime.
Yeah. 100%. That's great advice. Now, what hydration target do you like people to consider, and how can they make it easy and consistent?
Yeah. So there's different ways of looking at hydration.
Hmm.
And so, I don't have all those in front of me, but, a lot of people will hear drink half your body weight measured in pounds in ounces in
Right.
water per
Hmm.
day. So that's one measure. There's differences depending on age groups and phase of life, of course. If we're a competitive athlete, we're going to have higher hydration requirements than somebody who's sedentary.
Yeah.
Another one is some practitioners will say, don't track so much the ounces of fluid, but look at how often you're urinating. So if you can
Mm.
count that you're urinating during a 24-hour period anywhere from maybe 6 to 8 times. 8 times seems like a bit much, but that was recommended by one expert I've talked to. But about 6 times in a 24-hour period, just like make your, count it one day.
Yeah, yeah,
Make a
yeah.
little list or jot it down.
Uh-huh.
And that could be a good way of also tracking hydration if you're urinating frequently enough.
I love that. That's a great idea. I never even, I never paid attention to how many times I've urinated, that's not even that even crossed my mind. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good way to really think about it. Am I hydrated? Am I drinking enough of water and so forth? Yeah, I like that.
exactly. Yeah. And I think people can get used to that a little bit more than, tracking fluid every day. If you have a huge water container you use every day, great, whatever works for you.
Yeah,
But I also think that it's nice to kind of know that maybe you are hitting your goals. And if you feel better when you're well hydrated, um,
yeah,
that feeling of I'm doing this thing that's good for me and I feel good doing it, that helps propel you forward. So just
right.
kind of like tracking those things, even it's just easy, just the easy tracking things like this.
I like that. I like that a lot. What motivational dips, like do you do to keep your routine so it doesn't come off the wheel?
So I think this is going to be different for everybody, but I love this question because life happens, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Right? I mean, like
Oh my
we
God,
can
yeah.
be in this space where we're organized and we're feeling good and we're going to bed at the same time every night. That's another big tip I failed to mention, but regular
Yeah.
sleep and wake times really,
Hmm.
really important to make sure that we are staying on track and not throwing off our circadian rhythm or hormones. But it then something happens, we there's a life stressor or an injury, right? Things happen and it's like a roller coaster sometimes. So I would say be kind. First and foremost, be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
It's a marathon, not a sprint, this thing we call life, and enjoy the journey, and needs change.
Oh
So
yeah.
I would say to people, like, what are you really needing right now? And don't compare yourself to a past version of yourself.
Right.
Your routine in your 20s is not going to be your routine in your 40s.
Right.
That doesn't make sense. And I would say get regular lab testing. And so, not just routine labs. I mean, this is imperative to make sure that there's nothing major going on. But if
Yeah.
there are concerns, whatever they may be, if there's symptoms, if there's fatigue, if there's joint pain, if there's irregular periods for our female patients, if there's
Yeah.
sexual dysfunction, whatever it may be, consider an integrative approach or a functional approach. Those are kind of key words if you're not familiar, but integrative and functional. If you look at a practitioner who has those terms noted in their bio or their practice website, they're going to be more open-minded to looking at things like we're talking about today, such as nutrient status, such as hormone levels, such as inflammation and oxidative stress and fiber. They're going to think about all these things so that you don't have to do all the work. Although I'm a huge advocate for patients educating themselves and collaborating with their healthcare practitioners. But um, I know that was a long-winded answer, but I would say find what
Oh,
works for you now, not
yeah.
in the past, and make sure that you're including objective measurements, which is typically going to be blood work for most people.
Yeah. And you know what? My body has been consistently changing like they say your body changes every 7 years. Well, I think it's true because, after so many years, you see your body start to change and you see things start to function differently. And
Yeah.
you really need to keep up with these things. You really do because you're
Hmm.
not the same like you were a couple of years back. Your body consistently changes on you.
Exactly. And how lucky are we to be present within that aging process and to have the
Yeah.
privilege to notice change. I think that's becoming more of the viewpoint, which I love
Yeah.
seeing, is that can we age gracefully and have a lot of gratitude for the process rather than saying like, let's obsess over youth and what, I used to be able to achieve, whether it's athletically or, whatever, if it's more superficially or body composition or, you know what I mean? There's so many blessings
Yeah.
that come with these changes.
I love it. I love it. Now, which basic labs do you find most helpful for your overall wellness and why?
Yeah, so this is what we talk about oftentimes at the lab is foundational testing. And
Hmm.
so, to be clear, your routine labs or your blood tests typically are going to be looking at thyroid function, comprehensive metabolic panel to make sure that blood sugar is normal, kidney and liver function is adequate. These things are routine, complete blood count to make sure we don't have any disorders with our blood producing too much or too little as far as
Yeah.
these cells. If we're, we want to make sure we're not anemic, if we're eating a restricted diet, or if we're feeling a lot of fatigue. This is very important. That is going to be essential. And then we want to think about the functional medicine piece, right? So oftentimes, as a clinician myself, I see patients and my colleagues see patients who say, well, my doctor said everything was normal. All those blood
Yeah.
tests were normal, but I still feel fatigued and I still hurt all over and my sleep's terrible and I'm depressed and I'm anxious and the list can go on. So everything's normal, but I don't feel great and I
Yeah.
don't feel normal. So then we think about, well, is there dysfunction? And this is where functional medicine comes in. We want to optimize function. So
Yeah.
testing that's not diagnostic, but that can help look for signs of dysfunction, in my opinion, is very foundational. So these
Yeah.
things are going to be like micronutrient testing. Can we look at an advanced micronutrient panel that looks at serum? This is outside of the cell nutrient status and
Yeah.
inside the cell nutrient status.
Right.
That's going to be my go-to. And in addition to that, toxins. So, of course, we can speak to gut testing. That could be a whole conversation, absolutely. But
Yeah.
I want to mention that the environmental medicine component is increasingly becoming an issue. I mean, it has been for a long time now, but we have more and more chemicals that we have to contend with. Endocrine disruptors. These are
Yeah.
chemicals that disrupt your hormones. And
Yeah.
every day, from the soaps we're using, air fresheners, the fabrics that we're using, they shed off, and sometimes this gets into the environment. We could be inhaling, ingesting, absorbing
Yeah.
topically, all of these endocrine disruptors, candles and cleaning products and cosmetics. I mean, the list goes on, and I don't say it to focus on the doom and the gloom of it, but I say it to
Yeah.
empower everybody
Yeah.
to say, this is just like diet and exercise in terms of a pillar of health that I
Right.
really want to emphasize here. And every day we can't completely avoid. So I want to make that clear. I don't believe we can 100% completely avoid the environmental toxins because your neighbor, despite everything you're controlling for in your
Yeah.
nice bubble, your neighbor is spraying a toxin
Toxin.
possibly or some kind of pesticide, and you might be inhaling it. And
Yeah.
that's okay. You can think about air purification for inside the home. You can think about proper hydration to your point, which is going to help flush out and detoxify these things.
Yeah.
Um, so really, really important foundational piece there. And then I would say the stool testing, comprehensive stool testing that looks at more than just your basics like your pancreatic elastase, calprotectin, lactoferrin. Generally, those are only ordered if there's an issue. But I
Yeah.
feel that we can glean a lot from these comprehensive functional medicine stool testing, even in asymptomatic individuals, because we're looking to optimize. We're not necessarily looking to identify a problem, but we're looking at how can we improve and possibly prevent issues down the road.
Oh, 100%. That's a phenomenal answer. Yes, 100%. I don't think people realize all the little things that they do, how it affects the body, like the candles or
Mhm.
the air fresheners especially. Like, some of them could actually make you feel like you want to choke when some of them have those automatic, like it just spritz up in the air
Terrible.
and yeah. And
We
it's
don't
like,
need it, but it's being sold to us constantly.
yeah, and then some people they go for salt baths. So, there are some healthy ones out there that are good for the body, but there's quite a few of them that you put them in your bathtub and you go in the bathtub and just the smell, those
Mhm.
scents, whatever they put in it, can make you like choke, because it's not good for the body. Whatever, it smells nice, but once you get the really like abrupt smell from it, you start choking because it's not good for the body. The body is rejecting it. It's scary. It really
Mhm.
is.
Yeah, some of them are stronger than others for sure. And some people are more sensitive than others. So that's the
Yeah.
thing too. We might say, well, my girlfriend can use every potion and cream and, bath salt that she wants
Yeah.
and she feels great. And I'm, sneezing and coughing and I've got rashes when I use a very kind of pared down routine. And that's
Right.
okay. We're all different. We all have different needs. And I
Yeah.
would also say there might be some things under the hood, like from a cellular perspective that person
Yeah.
may not be feeling from a symptom standpoint right now, but there could be some inflammation that they're not aware of. And so again, I'm just really, really cognizant of prevention and how we can use these things in that way.
Oh, 100%. Now, when you reviewed the results, like what ranges or patterns you're hoping to see, and what would prompt a follow-up conversation with somebody?
Yeah. So many different patterns depending on the labs that we're looking at. One I would like to highlight would be on a comprehensive stool test. We are looking at obviously what's going on in the gut. So the stool is going to reflect the microbiome. So those organisms that live largely in the large bowel. But we can also look at systemic health and well-being via other indicators, one of
Yeah.
which is beta-glucuronidase.
Hmm.
Beta-glucuronidase is an enzyme that can lead to recirculation of estrogens that were meant to be excreted in that stool or that bowel movement. Um,
Hmm.
so the visual I like to give for this is that the liver, of course, we need to have adequate amounts of estrogen. We don't want too little or too much, but the liver will take estrogen and put a little conjugate or a little anchor onto it because
Yeah.
sometimes we have estrogen we need to get rid of. We don't want too much.
Right.
So when we conjugate or we add that anchor to estrogen, I think about the anchor pulling down the estrogen through the stool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And when we're doing this, we hope all is well and we're able to excrete it. But the microbiome can influence this to go the other way. And so the
Yeah.
microbiome with this enzyme beta glucuronidase can actually deconjugate or pull off that anchor. It's like that
Mhm.
trickster character
Yeah.
that's trying to cause issues and wreak havoc, right? So it's this is kind of disruptive enzyme that takes that anchor off. So now instead of being pulled out in the stool, it's going back into circulation when it was meant to be rid of.
Yeah.
And so that may be exacerbating issues for people with hormonal concerns. It might be contributing to estrogen dominance. Estrogen dominance is something that we speak to oftentimes in the wellness industry. It might contribute to things like endometriosis and fibroids, maybe
Mhm.
even endometrial cancer for some folks. If they have too much estrogen over a lifetime, that might be associated. So we
Yeah.
really want to think about Goldilocks when it comes to levels.
Yeah.
And the gut, we oftentimes don't think about how can our gut be related to hormones, but that's just one
Yeah.
example of how it is.
It is. It's big time related. People don't realize how much it just winds with each other. Now, how
Mm-hmm.
often do you like people to retest these basics at a normal during a normal year?
So generally speaking, practitioners will run the foundational lab. So, depending on what that means to you. So for me, I would say micronutrients, toxins, and stool testing. It might be once a year just to take a look, just to
Mhm.
screen for any dysfunction. Again, we're not diagnosing, but there might be signs of dysfunction and room for improvement. That might be once a year in somebody who feels good. It might
Yeah,
be more frequent in somebody who's struggling.
right.
So it might be every 6 months in somebody who's struggling. And I would say for the toxins, it's very helpful to get repeat measurements in particular because you can start to see what is a persistent toxin
Mhm.
because
Right.
you maybe went to a hotel that has those bath salts. We'll run with that one that you were talking
Yeah,
about, and you were like, I'm on vacation, they smell nice, I don't buy this for myself at home, I'm going to use it, I'm going to relax. And
right.
that was just a one-off. You did it once, it was a short exposure. Our body knows how to metabolize and get rid of these things. It's okay. But if we
Yeah,
see that it's still high, whatever toxin, I'm thinking generally phthalates. Phthalates are a big one for fragrance. That word fragrance typically is hiding
yeah,
phthalate because they're not disclosing what fragrance means in a lot of these products. Unless it says phthalate free, that word fragrance in the ingredient list typically contains phthalate. So if we see phthalate high on a toxin panel
yeah.
twice, then I'm thinking maybe it wasn't just that one time you went on vacation. Maybe it's something that you're using more regularly. So I think that
Right.
the repeat measurements for toxins in particular can be really helpful to elucidate trends,
Hmm.
identify hidden sources. It's really
Right.
a educational experience when patients run these tests, and we don't have to do everything at once. To my point, like if I see it go up on one snapshot, I'll educate. I won't wait to educate, but I'm also thinking we don't need to tear apart the house to try to
Yeah.
find it unless
Mhm.
I'm thinking that there is a serious implication or impact due to a regular exposure of that particular compound or toxin.
Right. Oh, that's a very good answer. Now, how should a listener ask their clinician, these about these labs in a respectful, collaborative way?
Yeah, I love that question. I mean, I think more and more practitioners are understanding that people want more time. I always
Hmm.
think about the visual of the doctor or clinician with their hand on the door while they're,
Yeah.
talking to you. They're just like trying to run out of there in some cases, which doesn't feel good for the patient if they are slammed back to back. And I never point fingers. There's so many things involved from insurance to pressure as far as charting, and things are getting better there, but like there's just so much rushing when it comes to certain medical practices. So I would say maybe saying I want to have a bigger conversation maybe in advance so the clinician knows in advance of the appointment that this is going
Yeah.
to be more of a conversation than a quick in and out appointment. Some providers are more open-minded to receiving research than others.
Yeah.
But I would say if you have a healthcare practitioner who gets defensive when you're bringing in research just to try to educate yourself
Yeah.
and the clinician, because I can't know everything, they can't know everything. They're
Right.
specialists, and then
Yeah.
there's general practitioners, and the general practitioners refer to the specialists, and they refer back to one another, and we can't know it all. So if you have a
Yeah.
provider who is defensive when you're trying to maybe talk about something or learn about something, then I would definitely recommend trying to find somebody else and someone who's open-minded to the functional medicine test to say it's easy to sign up to become a
Mhm.
provider. It's super easy. And that's very routine is for providers to sign up, even if it's just for one patient. If they're open-minded enough, that is not
Yeah.
unusual. So I would just look for open-mindedness and say, this is something I want to explore. And I mean, it should be an open conversation in a provider who's there to support you.
Oh, I agree completely. Now, what at-home metrics like sleep, heart rate, or blood pressure are worth tracking between visits?
Again, depending on the patient, CGMs or continuous glucose monitors are becoming more popular because we are talking more about insulin resistance as
Mhm.
a huge contributing factor to overall inflammation and metabolic dysfunction. And so that's one, it's not for everybody, especially
Yeah,
in this kind of hypervigilant society. I think that it's really good for educating somebody who is not well aware of maybe their dietary choices. It's probably not so great for someone who's been studying health and wellness for a long time and they're very meticulous. That could actually cause
right.
more anxiety.
Yeah,
Um, so I would say, for tracking, I mean, I'm not a big tracker, but I think people like Aura rings. People like these sort of wearable devices. So
yeah,
whatever works for you, if there's a device
right.
that's adding value to your life and you find yourself getting excited about it rather than stressed, great.
Yeah.
I think that that's fabulous. I will say, so one thing I've been using for years and years and years, it's not a daily thing that I do, but I track my period. That's super, and it seems so obvious, but I think there
Mhm.
are plenty of menstruating people, females, if you will, and
Yeah,
menstruating people who are not tracking. They've never tracked. And as a
yeah,
clinician, I'm thinking, oh, please start tracking yesterday.
yeah,
That's huge. And you're just, if you're regular, you're basically just entering that in a few days a month during your period. But then you can start to
yeah,
see trends. You can start to see lengthening of cycles. You can even
right.
track symptoms, whatever app you like. I don't promote any one particular app, but
Yeah.
that's major for menstruating people.
Oh, I think so too. I always track and I want to know if I'm on cycle. I want to know when I'm ovulating. I want to see
Yes.
how the changes are. Am I bleeding, too heavy, too many times, and because all these are just signs and symptoms of things going on in your body, and you want to make sure that your body's functioning normally, or else you need to see, a doctor that specializes in this, like yourself. It's very important. Now I have a couple of questions. So if it's
Yeah.
morning and you're rushed, what are your fastest diverse breakfasts that travels well?
Ooh, so I mean, my gut reaction would be a smoothie, but I don't even have a blender right now to tell you, Stacey. I tossed my blender when I moved recently over a year. Well, it wasn't that recent. Over a year ago, I moved,
Uh-huh.
and it was worn down. It needed to go. So that wouldn't be an option for me. But I would say if you can plan ahead to have some hard-boiled eggs in the fridge. I mean, the
Yeah.
people around you may not like you, but that's an easy one. Maybe eat it in your car before you go into wherever.
Right.
And I would say nuts though, seeds and nuts. So
That's a
again,
good
I'm always going
idea.
back to seeds and nuts, but you could keep it in your car. So
Yeah.
at least the body's getting some protein in with
Exactly.
that. And so it's so easy to just grab a handful of almonds, walnuts, whatever you like, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds are wonderful for hormones in particular
Yeah.
for men and women. So I would say seeds and nuts would be my go-to for sure and a quick fix for breakfast.
I like that. I like that a lot. Now, if stress eating was the issue at night, what is your two-step plan to interrupt that pattern today?
Oh gosh. Let's see. Stress eating at nighttime in particular.
Yeah. Those nighttime
Mm,
cravings. Hmm.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm very I'm not very rigid when it comes to these things. I'm very much of the mind, listen to your body. I spoke to a practitioner a while ago when I was hosting a podcast, and he practices Ayurvedic medicine, and he was speaking to why cravings should be listened to sometimes because they might be telling you something.
Yes.
And this is within reason. And so that's kind of within the
Right.
framework I understand in the Ayurvedic practice.
Mhm.
So I think that it's to that point, asking why. Are we still
Right.
hungry?
Yeah.
Like, did we eat dinner at 5 and now we're just hungry? Maybe we
Right.
didn't eat enough. Maybe we didn't get enough fiber or protein or healthy fat. So I always want to know why. Um,
Mhm.
And and maybe there is there's something that you could eat instead, like, the handful of almonds or an egg, or I like
Oh,
pickles. I like something tart and salty. I think that that's
me
really
too.
nice go to. Yeah.
Yeah,
So yes, and we don't want to be eating too late at night. That can throw off things, that can be disruptive to sleep and blood sugar,
yeah.
absolutely. But I would ask why. And
Hmm.
sometimes it may be that you are truly hungry, but it also might be because you're stressed and you say, like, I want something comforting and sugary,
Yeah,
and maybe having tea instead, like having an herbal tea, because
yeah,
you maybe, if you want that dark chocolate, great. I am very much, do what's right for you, but know why. Know
yeah.
where that craving is coming from and understand if it's an emotional place,
Right.
right? Can we shift from the cupcake to a bath, or right, a winding down routine, or stretching right before
Yeah,
sleep? Can we, take that emotion and maybe put it towards put that effort towards a healthier place, and maybe you have that cupcake, and that's okay too. We don't
yeah.
want to overdo any of that.
I agree. There are times where I have had a craving at night and I've actually had a cup of tea and it took the craving away. I felt full. I felt like I didn't need it and I enjoyed my cup of tea and that's all I needed. And it did
Mhm.
the trick. It did the trick.
Yeah, yeah, I love hearing that. And you did something. It's not like you ignored it. It's not like you tried to distract yourself or you shamed
Yeah.
yourself for feeling that craving, but you replaced it with something that was maybe more nutrient dense, is what I would say, and more nourishing, really.
Right, exactly. Now we told the listeners that you promised five concrete actions. What would you share with and what five things would you do this week for overall wellness? What's your five?
Okay, so I want to think about my routine,
Mhm.
so this is I know me the best, right? Of everyone, as many patients as I've seen and clients I've talked to, everyone's different once again. So for me, I'm gonna bring up again the first morning light.
Hmm.
So, and this is before looking at your phone. I know a lot of us wake up to our phone, so you might have
Yeah,
to just turn off the alarm. Okay, but I don't want any scrolling or opening up of any apps until we've already gone outside. So that would be number one.
hmm,
Eating breakfast, which of course there's going to be a caveat. If there's intermittent fasting, and this is part of your plan, that's great. That's something to talk to you about your healthcare practitioner about. I think that it's not for everybody, but if we're
right.
not doing any kind of intermittent fasting for any such reason, whatever, it may be getting in breakfast, getting in protein.
Yeah,
And it may not be a huge amount. I know that there's a huge trend right now to get at least 30 grams at every meal. I think it depends
mhm,
on your activity level, right? Your phase in life, um, um, your sex, male versus female, so much stress level. There's so many different things there.
yeah,
So, and I feel so much better, even if it's a little something.
yeah,
Even before working out, like getting in a little bit of protein to signal to the body that there's some protein and amino acids coming in.
yeah.
That would be number two. Number three would be social connection. And that
Hmm.
might just be texting a friend who you haven't seen in a while. I know we're super busy,
Yeah,
to your point, Stacey, right? Life can get so crazy. And it's really easy to let friendships kind of stay on the back burner. But I loved this little analogy. Mel Robbins, I think she's been kind of blowing up. I love her content.
yeah.
She said, texting a friend you haven't talked to in a while or haven't even seen, maybe you haven't seen them in years, maybe texting a friend is like watering your garden. And I just love that so much, just to text, like,
Yeah,
I'm thinking about you.
yeah,
I think that goes a long way, even if you don't have much time to get it to call them and have a conversation. Just I'm thinking
right.
of you. That would be, I think, are we at three? I think we're
Mhm.
at three. Let's see. I would say think about color in the diet and think about fiber in the diet for that week. I mean, and so I'm not saying count every single week or count every single day how many
Yeah,
base fibers you've had, but just a moment to kind of think like, what did I eat today? I think that's fun.
yeah,
I mean, I can kind of geek out on that, but I think it's kind of fun to say like, wow, I had garlic, tomatoes, potatoes, turkey, eggs, think about all the things, kale, I had all these things, even in like a salsa, you'll get onions and peppers. And
right.
so think about what kind of variety have you had that day? And,
Hmm.
how do you feel? Maybe you're not feeling so well. Maybe you skipped a meal. So that kind of
Yeah,
fits in with not skipping breakfast. And then the last thing would be, oh gosh, let's see. Move. Just move. And so I say move and not exercise because I think a lot of people just roll their eyes when you say exercise. But I'm
yeah,
saying, can we, I mean, we think about this, but like we hear about this a lot is what I mean. Taking the stairs instead of the elevator. But
right.
it makes a difference. I live
Yeah,
on the fourth floor and I see most of my neighbors take the elevator every day. I walk the stairs every day.
right.
And it's not a competition. I'm just saying that the minority of the time, the very small minority of the time, I'm taking the elevator.
Yeah,
And even if it's just one floor up,
right.
just walk the one floor up or, and then go to the elevator if you want to take the last three up in my case.
Yeah,
And so just getting movement, whether it's dancing, walking, stretching counts. That's another
yeah,
thing. Stretching counts. We don't have to be a sweaty, huffing and puffing mess
yeah,
for
exactly.
movement to count. Um,
Yeah,
so I would say move your body. We're built to move. We're not built to be a couch potato. And, like there's a
exactly.
time for that, but like we're really not built to be sedentary.
Exactly. 100%. I agree with you. And now, do you have any products or services that you'd like to tell us about?
So, as we mentioned before, I'm full time with Vibrant Wellness. We are a functional medicine laboratory company. So, we have a huge test menu offering everything from micronutrient testing, hormone testing, stool testing, and you can find us at vibrant-wellness.com. So, that's vibrant-wellness.com. Um, for practitioners interested in signing up, you'll see very clearly how to do that at the top of the page there for practitioners. Our labs are not direct to consumer, so providers will have to have an account to order those for you if you're interested and you're not a healthcare practitioner yourself.
Yeah.
But again, I think that a healthcare practitioner who is open minded enough to sign up and explore and learn is one worth keeping around.
I love it. I love it. This has been truly amazing. I thank you so much, Dr. Emmy, for coming on the show and sharing your knowledge with us. I think it's so important because I think people have to, be reminded that it's so important to really pay attention to your body and to make sure that it's functioning properly. And it's good to get tested because a lot of times, people wait till your body breaks and then they
Mm,
go and they try to get help and try to be, it's good to try to be preventive and to keep up with these things, especially as we get older and we start to get into midlife or, nowadays, I started noticing changes early on in my life, to start early and to get your full blood work done. And functional medicine doctors, especially, they check for things that primary care but doctors do not check for, and their markers are different. And so they go deep down inside and they really check everything out. So they can tell even if something is off and it's not a problem yet, they could see it. And that's
mhm,
important because if they could see it before it's actually a problem, then they could work with you and try to make it not a problem. And if you have issues, they can help you in a more natural way. So you don't have to get a prescription drug and then you get all these symptoms from the prescription drug and then you go back and saying, now this bothers me and that bothers me, and
mhm,
someone else gives you a prescription drug, and before you know it, you have a pharmacy in your bathroom, and you're still still not feeling better and you're still at square one. So it's important to have, people like yourself who help people. And I say just be proactive. That's my biggest message to people. And I'm so glad that you came on the show today to share your message and to really give such great advice. You're a wonderful individual, and the advice you gave today and the knowledge you shared was just outstanding.
Thank you so much, Stacey. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you, and I hope listeners take away something from this conversation. I think that they will.
Yeah.
I know myself, even just hearing the reminders of staying up on the simple things, right? The regular
Yeah.
sleep times and making sure that we're getting in that light, even if it's cold and you
Yeah.
don't go outside, right? It's so important to bring nature into your every single day. So I hope that I got that message across. But it was such a pleasure speaking with you. So thank you.
You're very welcome, and thank you. It's been a pleasure meeting you and having you on this show. You have a great day.
Thank you, you too.